Today I'm going to talk about the 5 most important skills that no one teaches students, even though science suggests that these are like the most important skills to become independent learners. And many times, because no one teaches them these skills, when students go to higher grades and higher classes, suddenly they find everything very difficult. If you're one of them, if you feel like all of a sudden everything is really hard, I'm not able to score marks, then this will really help you. To explain these skills, let me take 2 classic examples. I have Anaya over here and then I have Aryan over here. Okay. So Anaya, this is her story. So she comes to 11th standard and then she writes her first maths exam. And till then she's been scoring really well. Okay, all her life she's been doing really well. But suddenly her scores are really low. It's gone low. She's like really surprised. So she goes to her teacher and says, "Ma'am, this cannot be right. I'm an amazing student. I've been doing really well in maths all my life. How can I get such a low score?" And number 2, she also says, "And I've been studying like this all my life. Like the way I study is that I wait till the very last moment. I study on the last night. You know why? Because when I do that, it's like fresh in my head. The next day, it's like I don't have to remember far behind, right? It's very fresh and it's worked for me all my life." And this is Aryan's story. Aryan also is coming to 10th standard for the first time and then he writes his first chemistry exam, right? His chemistry. And then he suddenly finds that he does badly. He's getting really low marks and he doesn't understand why, because again, all his life he's been doing really, really well. But Aryan is different. Aryan studies such that he studies every day. He constantly makes sure he spends some time studying every day, right? So he's done the same thing for this exam as well. He's been studying every day. He's been rereading his textbook continuously almost every day. He's been highlighting so much that his textbook practically is glowing neon, right? And then he's been using flashcards. He's been using all his techniques to memorize things, but still he's not doing well. So where are they going wrong? So at first glance, it might look like both of them are very different types of students, right? One student is studying the last minute and the other student has been studying for a really long time. But there's one thing common, and that's where they're going wrong. Where they're going wrong is in metacognition, okay? And whoa, yeah, even the first time I heard someone say this, I was like, whoa, this guy must be really, really cool and brainy. Anyways, what is this metacognition? So metacognition is the process of reflecting on and directing one's own thinking. Let me explain. So in both these cases, they're not correctly assessing their own learning and performance, and they're not modifying their strategies in order to suit the current situation. Okay, sir, I understand this fancy term, metacognition, but how do you improve your metacognitive skills? Well, yeah, that's a good question. So this is where the 5 important skills come. This is how you learn metacognition, okay? Number 1, you need to learn how to correctly understand and assess the task. Like, what does success for this task actually look like? Number 2, you should know how to evaluate your own strengths and your own knowledge. You should understand where you exactly stand. Number 3, you should know how to plan your approach. Knowing all this, right? Now you know what the goal is and now you know what your strengths and weaknesses are. Plan it, taking all of this into account. Number 4, learn to apply different strategies to actually execute your plan. And more importantly, monitor your progress. How to monitor if you're doing well or not. Number 5, learn to reflect on how your current plan is working. Are you actually, moving towards a goal or not? And then change your plan based on your reflection. So assess the task. What does that mean? Well, funnily, most of the times, students really don't understand the objective of the task at hand, right? In this case, of course, it's an exam, or it could be a project, it could be a presentation, whatever the task is, right? Let's take the same thing. So if you take, say, Anaya or Aryan, in both these cases, Anaya probably thought, hey, okay, I have an exam coming. You know what? My objective of this task is just to study last minute, right? Or maybe Aryan thought, hey, okay, cool, I have an exam coming. All I have to do is just do what I did all my life, which is reread my book and highlight. They probably didn't realize that the actual objective of this project or this task was to understand the deeper concepts involved, be it chemistry or maths, so that they can show in their exam that they've actually understood this. So what do you do to do this well? Well, first, you spend more time just thinking about the task. Like if it's an exam, think about what the actual objective is. Or if it's a project or a presentation, think about it, spend time, write it down. And more importantly, cross-check with your teacher or your examiner or your coach or your mentor saying, hey, is this the right way to think about it? Is this the right goal I'm going for? The next important skill to learn is learning to self-evaluate your strengths and weaknesses, right? And funnily, many students go wrong here. For example, like let's take Anaya and Aryan, right? In Anaya's case, she was super confident. She felt like, hey, I know I'm really, really good at this subject. I'm pretty sure I don't have to do anything till the last minute, right? And on the other hand, Aryan was like, hey, I'm really, really good at this. I'm really good at chemistry. I'm just going to have to keep doing what I've been doing all my life and I'll be fine. both of them probably didn't realize that there were gaps in their knowledge and they needed to learn new things in order to do well in the exam. So to learn this skill, the first thing to do is reach out for help. Ask your coach or your mentor or your teacher, hey, okay, this is my project at hand. What do I do? How do I self-assess myself? Tell me where are my strengths and my weaknesses. Figure out what they're doing, right? And then from there, slowly start learning how to self-assess at every point. Now, every time there's a project or an assignment, figure out how you can assess and find out which are your strengths and your weaknesses. So how do you do this? How do you make a good plan? Well, first, make sure you give enough time for planning, right? At the beginning of your studying process or your strategy itself, make sure you're giving enough time for this. Like spend at least 1 or 2 days for this, right? This is something that beginner learners never do, right? Number 2, now that you've learned your strengths and weaknesses, create a plan that is in line with that, right? So for example, you have this chemistry exam coming, and then now now you've learned that these topics you are weak at, or these topics you don't know really well. Spend enough time. This topic I need to spend 2 weeks more. This topic I know better, so I don't have to spend that much time. So create a plan that's tailored to your strengths and weaknesses. And then finally, the last 2 skills, right? Learning to monitor your own progress and then reflecting and adjusting your strategies. Now, this is again a common mistake that beginner learners make. Like, let's take Aryan, for example, right? They generally have, especially learners who have limiting beliefs like, hey, I'm really, really good at a subject, or I'm really, really bad at a subject, right? What they think is, hey, you know what, if you take Aryan's case, hey, I'm really good at this, this is something that's worked with me. So there is no pausing to check if this strategy of, highlighting is actually working or not, right? That pausing doesn't happen. And similarly, because that pausing doesn't happen, there is no opportunity to actually change your strategy, right? So instead, a better way is to change your belief. Believe that, hey, all I need is just feedback. If I get good feedback, I need to work on that feedback and work on it and improve. So one way to monitor, right? Check your progress is to constantly ask for feedback. So let's say you're in this 4-week plan. At the end of week 1, ask for feedback. Ask your coach or your teacher, ask for feedback. Hey, am I doing this right? Or get feedback yourself by doing something like a self-assessment test. If it's a chemistry test, do like a chemistry exam just to understand where you are. This way you can understand if your strategy is actually working or not. And then, based on what you learn, based on how you think you're doing, change your strategy. If you find that your strategy is not really working, I'm not really going anywhere. In Aryan's case, for example, hey, I'm highlighting constantly, but it doesn't seem to be working. I'm not able to understand anything. Find a different strategy. Look for other ways, like, I'm going to this time do teaching the rubber duck. Okay, highlighting is not working. So instead, I'm going to see, every time I do a concept, I'm going to try teaching a rubber duck to see if that helps me learn more. So try different skills and different strategies to find out what works for you. So yeah, these are the 5 skills that unfortunately no one really teaches students, but can really help students become independent learners.